He came to fuck with me for the fight instead of going to Vegas.
So he never went to Vegas?
He never went to Vegas. He didn't go off top. So we watched the fight. We doing everything, watching the fight, having a good time. He had the Nextel back then. Remember the motherfucker? Yeah. I don't know what kind of Nextel he had, but he had the motherfucker could go that whatever it was hitting him all the way from what was going on from Vegas. Wow. So they was like, we could hear the shit, and then he started getting calls and shit, and they was telling him that Tupac got shot and da-da-da-da-da. So Snoop, I kicked everybody out. Get the fuck out of here, everybody get out of here. And then he took off. That's when he went to Vegas to go see him, to get out there to see what was going on, and that's when he went out there when he went to the hospital. But if I wouldn't have talked to him and got him to come over to my house, he probably would have been right there in the car with them. Wow. Yeah, and been shot too as well.
So Suge, I gotta ask you, and shout out to Snoop, I don't got no issue with Snoop, but every time I ask you about Snoop, you always bring up Vegas. And from what I get from it is, you feel like Snoop knew what was gonna happen to Tupac in Vegas. Can you speak on that, if you don't mind? Like, go more into detail?
I'm gonna typically like this. I'm never gonna say him. He had a fight. He had a ticket for the fight, a Tyson fight, where we always go to, a ringside ticket. They all knew that was the East Coast night, and everybody was excited about it. I had Run DMC performing that night. When you look at it, Dad said that, hey, we wasn't going. Snoop was on, fuck Death Row, basically fuck Tupac and everything above, and something gonna happen. Warren G says that Snoop was at his house watching the fight, and he had the walkie-talkie, the radio. Now, these walkie-talkies, the radios I had, it's not a Nextel. This is before all that. I had these radios that work on the whole West. So, only time a person got one of those radios, it's like if they was going to a club, or they was going to court, or they was going to an event, that they could communicate with their security. Whoever doing those security details, the security didn't keep them 24/7. So the radios were handed to, if two guys was going to be on Snoop, I would hand them two radios, and Snoop would have one. After that's finished, they would turn them back in. So it wasn't no need for Snoop to have a radio. That was surprising. So when Warren said he heard the shots, he heard everything was going on, and when everybody said they heard him say it got him, that's not just a red flag. That's a fact that somebody involved with something they shouldn't have been in, and they had a radio they shouldn't have had.
What if I told you that the man who claims to have loved Tupac like a brother might have known exactly what was coming that fatal September night in Vegas? What if the same rapper who supposedly saved Snoop Dogg's life was actually unwittingly exposing the most damning evidence of betrayal in hip-hop history? Warren G recently revealed on Drink Champs how he convinced Snoop to skip Vegas and watch the Mike Tyson fight at his LA house instead. But here's what Warren didn't realize. His story just exposed the smoking gun that Suge Knight has been pointing to for years. Because the question isn't whether Warren saved Snoop's life, the question is, how did Snoop know he needed saving? To really get what went down that night, we've got to rewind to 1996 when Death Row was at its peak. On the surface, it looked like an empire built on street cred and pure talent. But behind the scenes, things were already falling apart. Dre was getting ready to bounce, tired of Suge Knight's wild, violent way of running things, and even though Snoop had blown up with Doggy Style, he was dealing with his own murder case. When Pac joined Death Row in late 1995, everything changed. His charisma, his work ethic, and his undeniable star power quickly made him the label's new crown jewel. All Eyes on Me became the best-selling hip-hop album at that time, and suddenly, Tupac wasn't just another Death Row artist, he was the face of the entire label. But with Tupac's rise came an uncomfortable reality for some. The hierarchy was shifting. Snoop, who had been Death Row's golden boy since 1993, was now playing second fiddle to someone who had only been there for a year. Here's where the story gets interesting. Multiple sources close to Death Row during this period have confirmed that tensions between Tupac and Snoop were real and growing. It wasn't just about album sales or billing order, it was about respect, loyalty, and what Tupac saw as Snoop's willingness to switch up. Suge Knight has claimed that Tupac confronted Snoop after hearing him on a radio interview suggesting he'd be willing to work with Biggie and Diddy. For Pac, who was deep in his East Coast-West Coast war, this was nothing short of betrayal. During an interview with The Art of Dialogue, Suge said Tupac even slapped Snoop after the 1996 MTV Video Music Awards over these comments.
Now fast forward, we back at the hotel. And everybody got their rooms, and I would have a special room that the only person who knew that room number is Pac. I had his band at the door, so my boxers on, open the door up, Pac just runs in my room. I'm like, man, what's up? He like, you got a radio? He all pumped up, he cut the radio on. and we listened to Snoop on the radio. Snoop was, saying that's Pac on the bush. He'd do a song with Biggie, he'd do a song with Puffy, he'd do all these songs. So Pac was so mad because Pac loved those dudes. He always revived for them. So both of these artists was more than just artists to me, it was family to me. So when we got, downstairs, Pac took off on Snoop. Pac ran up on him, did what he did. Snoop ran this way, Pac ran behind him. I stopped it.
But here's what most people don't know. Tupac wasn't just angry about Snoop's public statements. According to multiple Death Row insiders, Pac had started questioning Snoop's loyalty entirely, wondering if his label mate was more concerned with protecting his own career than standing with his so-called brothers. Now let's carefully look at that fateful night of September 7th from a different perspective. Warren G's story about saving Snoop sounds heroic on the surface, but when you dig deeper, it reveals something far more sinister. Warren says Snoop was originally planning to go to Vegas with Tupac and Suge for the Mike Tyson fight, but at the last minute, Warren convinced him to come watch at his house instead. Here's where it gets suspicious. According to Warren, while they were hanging out, Snoop received live updates about what was happening in Vegas through a Nextel walkie-talkie. What would he be doing with a walkie-talkie on that night at that same time? Suge Knight immediately caught the significance of this detail. As he pointed out from prison, the only way you would have a radio is if you was at the fight with us and he had a security detail. By him not having a security detail, what are you doing with a radio? Why would you have a play-by-play on the radio? Think about that for a moment. Snoop had a direct line to real-time information about events in Vegas while sitting safely in Los Angeles. That's not a coincidence, that's coordination. But the Nextel radio isn't the only smoking gun. Suge Knight has also revealed that Snoop told Daz Dillinger not to go to Vegas that night, warning him that something's gonna happen.
Then, Daz was on some other shit. I really hate bringing up Daz because I take mental health serious, and I know he got mental problems, but Daz was on a situation saying that Snoop told him they can't go to the fight, can't go to the club, can't go to Vegas. It's gonna fuck shit up because something's gonna happen, basically.
Were you in Vegas?
No, we heard about it because they was trying to get us to go to Vegas. And we was like, Dog Pound, we was really on our fuck Death Row shit, really. You know what I'm saying? We was already saying fuck Death Row.
This wasn't some general safety concern. This was some kind of specific foreknowledge of danger. Let's put the pieces together. Snoop got a heads up, stayed back in LA, stayed in touch with folks in Vegas all night, and even told his close pals not to go. Meanwhile, Tupac, in the one person who could have called out any betrayal inside Death Row, was in that BMW with Suge, not knowing someone from his own camp might have seen it coming. And to make it even worse, Suge says Snoop and Daz later worked with DeAndre Big Dre Smith, one of the guys allegedly involved in Pac's murder. If that's true, then it's not just guilt by association, it's way too close for comfort. After Tupac got shot, Snoop's behavior started looking even more off. He says he rushed to the hospital to see Pac, but Suge Knight says that never happened.
He said Snoop kicked him out, and he came to the hospital. Snoop never came to the hospital, period.
According to Suge, Snoop didn't show up at the hospital, not even once. This hits different because it's part of a pattern. Snoop has a history of switching up the story when it comes to Tupac. Acting like he was heartbroken and rushed to be by Pac's side makes him look like the loyal friend, not someone who might have known what was really about to go down. But what really surprised everyone was how fast Snoop switched up after Pac died. Just a few months later, he's on the Steve Harvey Show with Diddy, talking about ending the East Coast West Coast beef, and even calling Diddy his dog from day one.
Yeah, so like me and my man Snoop was saying, y'all, there ain't no East Coast, West Coast beef.
I swear. We ain't coming to talk about nothing behind us. We come to talk about what's ahead of us.
Yeah.
We here to make a difference, you know what I'm saying? So we want y'all to stay in school and keep y'all heads in y'all books.
No doubt. Knowledge is power, y'all.
Because, you know, we're the future, so it's on us to make a change.
For someone who said Pac was like a brother, Snoop sure got real friendly with the same people Pac didn't trust. When you look at how Snoop's career played out, you start to see a pattern. He always finds a way to land on his feet while others around him fall off. When Death Row started getting messy, he was one of the first big names to dip, and after Tupac died, he backed away from all that East Coast West Coast drama real quick. Now that's not a crime or anything, but it does make you think. On the night of September 7th, 1996, the night Tupac got shot, Snoop stayed back in LA, watching the fight from there. Was that just luck, or did he know something that made him stay away from Vegas? Fast forward to now, and the questions around Snoop's role haven't gone away. If anything, they've gotten louder, with Dwayne Keefe D. Davis now on trial for Tupac's murder. More stuff about that night keeps coming out. Suge Knight, despite being imprisoned, has been vocal about his belief that Snoop has explaining to do regarding Tupac's death. Meanwhile, Snoop has acquired Death Row Records, the very label where this alleged betrayal took place. For Suge and other observers, this feels like adding insult to injury, profiting from the legacy of an empire that may have been built on his friend's blood. Here's the thing that makes Warren G's story so damning. He told it as a feel-good tale about friendship and coincidence. But what he actually described was a situation where Snoop had real-time intelligence about events in Vegas, chose to stay away despite originally planning to attend, and was receiving live updates as the night unfolded. This isn't the story of a friend who got lucky. This is the story of someone who knew enough to stay away and maintain communications with people who were in the know. Warren G, in trying to paint Snoop as fortunate, actually painted him as informed. 28 years later, these questions refuse to go away. Why did Snoop have a direct communication line to Vegas? Why did he warn Daz to stay away? Why has his story about visiting Tupac in the hospital been contradicted by the one person who was actually there that night? The truth about September 7th, 1996 may never be fully revealed. But Warren G's confession, meant to show how he saved his friend's life, might have actually exposed the darkest secret in hip-hop history. Because if Snoop Dogg really knew what was coming that night, then Tupac Shakur didn't just die. He was betrayed by one of the people he trusted most. And if that's true, then every tribute, every rest in peace post, and every claim of brotherhood becomes something much more sinister. A cover-up that's been hiding in plain sight for nearly 3 decades. The question isn't whether Warren G saved Snoop Dogg's life that night. The question is whether Snoop Dogg knew his own life needed saving, and if so, how? So what do you think? Was Snoop just lucky that night, or is there more to the story than meets the eye? Let me know what you make of it in the comments.